Hey, what is going on guys? My name is IndyGamerTag and I'm back for another Fortnite video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the aimbot settings that I have been using in Fortnite that have allowed me to have incredible accuracy and be winning a ton of the games that I play. Every time I upload a video on my channel, the #1 request that I see in the comments is what settings do you use? Now to briefly explain why I call these aimbot settings is because these settings actually match up perfectly with the speed of players in the game. So for instance, if you're playing in a solos game and there's someone in front of you running full speed, these settings will actually match up perfectly with those players' speed. Therefore, you'll be landing the most amount of shots you possibly can, with of course the exception of Bloom. So although 100% accuracy is literally impossible because Bloom is part of the game, this is actually the closest thing you can get to the greatest accuracy in Fortnite, hence the term aimbot settings. So let's not waste any time and let's go ahead and get right into these settings. So it goes without saying that this is for controller Fortnite, and although I use an Xbox One controller, you can certainly use these settings with any other controller that you have. Now I'm going to be making my way from top to the bottom in the controller settings tab. Starting at the very top is actually going to be the build and edit mode sensitivity multiplier. Both of these I currently have set to a 1.8. The reason this is because I feel like 1.8 is the perfect speed in the sense of being able to build with very decent amount of speed, however also still having a grasp of the general control. A lot of people like to have really high edit and build mode sensitivity multipliers, and the problem with this is although it might seem like you're building and editing at an incredibly fast rate, you're pretty much lacking a lot of control and you're making a lot of mistakes. So 1.8 suits my needs perfectly and I can recommend this to a lot of you guys. Now before we get right into the sensitivity settings, one thing needs to be stated, and that this is the look input curve we are using and it is linear. Most people use exponential because it's typically a lot slower, and generally a lot of people feel much more comfortable using exponential in comparison to the linear look input curve. Now the reason I use linear, and basically it's very important and critical for these settings, is because linear has a more raw stick input. Essentially what that means is whenever you barely press your analog stick, the game will register that and you will see that your character is moving around. This is very important for flick shots and general decent movement in the game. Exponential kind of puts off a slower feeling. It's a lot more difficult to land your shots, especially in 1v1 scenarios. So linear will kind of eliminate all of those errors from happening. This is what makes flick shots and some of the crazy shots that you've seen in not only my gameplay but other content creators' gameplays on Fortnite possible. Again, the linear look input curve is critical and necessary for these aimbot settings. So we'll now be looking at the look sensitivities themselves, starting with the advanced look sensitivity settings. The look horizontal speed as well as look vertical speed are both going to be set to a 60%, and since we use linear, we're also going to be using our turning horizontal and turning vertical boost. This kind of gives us the exact same feeling as exponential in the sense that it's not going to be too fast and hard to control. A lot of people really despise linear look input curve for the simple fact that it typically is a lot faster in movements. So by using the turning horizontal and turning vertical boost, this will actually make the linear look input curve much more comfortable. So for both of these boosts, we're going to be using an 18% with a turning boost ramp time of 0.25 seconds. And although I'm not going to go into full detail on what that really means and how it affects your movement, in short, it just makes it so linear is a lot more comfortable than what most people dislike it for. Now moving down is going to be the advanced aim down sights or ADS sensitivity. Obviously, as the name suggests, this is when you're going to be aimed down sights with an item when you use left trigger or L2. So the ADS look horizontal speed as well as ADS look vertical speed are both going to be set all the way down to a 6%, with an ADS turning horizontal boost as well as an ADS turning vertical boost at both 10%. And then your ADS turning boost ramp time is going to be set at 8.10 seconds. Now I'm sure you guys are wondering why the ADS sensitivities are both set to a 6%. This is probably a lot lower than what you usually use, but you also need to take into account the fact that we are using a linear look input curve. When using exponential, it's very common to see 14%, even up to like 30% for your ADS speed. But since we are using linear, which again is a very fast movement and raw stick input curve, it is very important to use a low sensitivity setting, which is why I have selected 6%. And also again, don't forget to ignore your horizontal and vertical boost with the turning boost ramp time. Now going further down in the sensitivity settings, we have the look dampening time. this is going to be set all the way to a 0.00 seconds. And again, I don't want to go into full detail on basically what this affects, but just know this is very important for landing your flick shots and faster movement. And as I mentioned, the look input curve needs to be linear. If you're using exponential, it's not going to work. You're never going to have outstanding accuracy and great movement throughout the game. So again, linear is by far the best look input curve. Even when it comes to building and editing, it's very important. This allows for very quick and snappy builds and edits, whereas if you were to use exponential, that's where a lot of the slower edits come from, as well as slower builds. And of course, our aim assist strength needs to be set to 100%. There's literally no reason why it should be lower than this. And then at the very bottom, we have our controller dead zone settings. So the left analog stick dead zone is for me at a 5%, with the right stick dead zone set to an 8%. The right stick dead zone is far more important than the left analog stick. Obviously, the right stick dead zone is essentially what controls everything besides movement. Our aim, accuracy, builds, edits, I mean quite literally everything that is important in Fortnite is controlled by the right analog stick. So by lowering it from a 20% all the way down to an 8% just allows us to put more emphasis on the snappier movements and have a bit more control when we're looking around. Now those are pretty much all of the sensitivity settings going over the look input curve. The sensitivity settings, edit mode sensitivity multipliers, as well as dead zones. So that's pretty much what's all going to pertain to your aimbot settings and basically improving your accuracy overall. And I don't want to end the video quite yet right there because I also want to talk about the keybinds. Now I'm not going to go full in depth on them and explain the purpose behind all of them, but I just know since a lot of people wonder what settings I use, they're probably a bit curious as of the keybinds I use as well. And again, I play on an Xbox One controller, but these can certainly be used on a PlayStation 4 controller. So basically I play on a custom Builder Pro, which I recommend everybody do. And the only changes I have made is that L3, which is the left analog stick clicked in, is binded to toggle pickaxe. So this is how you go from your pickaxe to your inventory and vice versa. And then secondly, I have my Y, which is triangle for PlayStation 4, binded to edit. This allows me to have instant edits, and then also left analog stick to click in for toggle pickaxe is just a bit ease of access. And then lastly, for my keybinds, the final change that I have made is when I go to edit, I have my confirm set to left trigger, which is also L2 on PS4. So again, left analog stick clicked in for toggle pickaxe, Y or triangle for edit, and lastly, left trigger or L2 is set to confirming my edits. And believe it or not, those are actually all of the settings that I use. Again, in this video, we went over everything from the look input curve and how that is extremely important for aimbot settings. We also talked about all of these sensitivity settings, edit mode sensitivity and build mode sensitivity multipliers, as well as touched on dead zones quite a bit, and then briefly touched the surface of the keybinds that I use, and just try to give you guys a brief description on why those are very important. I also explained to you guys how these settings will work and why they're called aimbot settings. I can literally guarantee that after using these settings and giving yourselves maybe a day or two to get used to them, you will pretty much see that your aim and accuracy has improved drastically, and you'll see why these are called the aimbot settings in Fortnite. Now, if you guys enjoyed today's video or found it helpful, a like would be beyond appreciated down below. And of course, on the contrary, if you genuinely disliked today's video, then feel free to leave a dislike as well. And if you're new around here and would like to see more Fortnite content like this in the future, feel free to subscribe as well as turning on those post notifications. Nonetheless, my name is DeadZone. Thank you all for watching today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow. Adios.